guys, you're welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are feeling good. My name is Bukunmi Biki Crown. So guys, we're gonna be checking out this video titled I hated Islam until this is my story. Wow, let's watch, guys.
A question I'm often asked by viewers of this program is, why do I care so much about injustices in the Muslim world when I'm not, in fact, a Muslim? So here it goes. I do hold a great deal of affection for Islam, which is unsurprising given I have studied the religion intimately and professionally for the past dozen years, while also spending a great amount of time living among and working with Muslim communities. And I can also tell you this, that as an agnostic, were I to one day be convinced of a holy creator, then I have no doubt that Islam would be the religion for me. Because as a journalist and a human rights activist, no other faith speaks to the values I hold dear to my heart. You see, Islam not only promotes justice and respect for human rights, but also teaches people to live together in peace and harmony, regardless of race, class and belief. But with all of that said, I held a completely different attitude towards Islam exactly 17 years ago.
Wow.
In fact, I was an Islamophobe. For a 4-year period after witnessing an Al-Qaeda-sponsored terrorist attack in Indonesia in 2005. A night when 2 suicide bombers detonated themselves among women and children on Bali's Jimbaran beach, killing 23 people. It fell upon me and 4 of my closest friends to sort the living from the dead, and then move the injured to an area safely away from the beach until ambulances arrived. That night would forever change the trajectory of my life, because until that moment I had never given Islam a second thought, even though I had lived permanently in Indonesia for 2 years at that point. But for the days, weeks and months that followed, I became obsessed with Islam and blamed it for the horrific violence I witnessed that evening.
It was a typical Saturday night on Bali's tourist strip, holiday makers packing bars and restaurants, and all of them easy prey for bombers intent on causing the maximum possible carnage. And a warning to viewers, some of the following images may be disturbing.
I'm not going to share those images because you get the point. But what's important here is that over the course of the next several months, I went from being agnostic towards religion to a fully fledged Islam-hating new atheist. The anti-religious books of Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris and others made me believe Islam was responsible for terrorism. Crazy, I now know. But in many ways I was radicalized into anti-religious extremism, or what is Islamophobia, the same way many are radicalized into violent religious extremism. Here's Professor Lorne Dawson to explain how experiencing a traumatic event can often create a cognitive opening, making an individual receptive to the possibility of new ideas and worldview.
There's almost always a contingent factor that just when they were feeling and thinking a certain way, they met certain people. And it's quite accidental. We talk about cognitive openings. So you've peeled away your old ideas, you're opening to new ideas, you're in a fragile frame of mind, you're looking for some guidance and leadership, and along comes at that moment somebody with a clear set of beliefs and ideas that are about saving the world, and about how you, little old you, can make a difference and change the world.
But not only was my changing worldview being influenced by popular anti-Islam writers, but also the US-led war on terror, which by 2005 had morphed into a fully fledged war on Muslims. We were being led to believe the Quran was responsible for 9/11, the London bombings, and the attack I witnessed in Bali. We were told that this was a clash of civilizations, that Islam has bloody borders, while the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan were sold as civilizing missions. I'm still ashamed to admit that for a brief period in my life, I sounded a lot like this hateful clown.
We need to end Muslim immigration temporarily. I'm not saying forever. I do also think we should stop building mosques temporarily, not forever.
In 2008, I published a book that condemned religion, all religions, and it gave me a large audience among the growing anti-Islam crowd in the United States. But long ago I instructed my publisher to remove the book from print because it no longer reflects the person I am today. So I now know what you're thinking. What was it that made me, CJ, suddenly wake up and realize that my hateful attitudes towards Islam were wrong? Well, For a lack of a better phrase, my first come to Muhammad moment occurred in 2009 when I read Mahmoud Mamdani's book, which unpacked many of the lies the mainstream media was telling about Islam during the early years of the War on Terror.
I was struck by the fact that the New York Times kept on reporting that more and more Americans were buying copies of the Quran in order to gain an insight into the motivation of those who hijacked planes and hit them into the Twin Towers. And the New York Times eventually reported that the Quran was one of the best sellers in American bookshops. I was struck by it because I thought of my own family, friends, people I knew back home in Kampala, and as the weeks and months and years rolled by, and as the U.S. invaded Iraq and bombed Iraq, I wondered whether my parents or relatives or cousins or friends were going to bookshops to buy copies of the Bible to get an insight into why the U.S. was bombing Iraq. And of course I realized they weren't. I didn't even think the people of Fallujah were trying to get a clue as to why bombs were raining on them by reading the Bible, even though the President of the US was claiming biblical inspiration for these set of events.
This book ignited a fire within me. It made me want to understand Islam in a deep and intimate way. And because I was fortunate to be living in Indonesia at the time, I had access to some truly great Islamic scholars. Through them I came to understand how the Quran and Islamic hadiths squared with the life and times of the Prophet Muhammad. I came to see him as a remarkably inspirational figure, an individual who not only defended his people against devious enemies, but also a leader who delivered justice, peace and equality while eradicating corruption and vice. He was a revolutionary against oppression and injustice, the same way Jesus Christ stood up for the downtrodden and those crushed under the heel of Roman occupation. Ultimately, I guess what you could say is this, that whereas an Islamist terrorist attack had turned me into an anti-Islam bigot, studying the Quran and experiencing Islamic culture turned me into an activist against Islamophobia. And I've spent much of the past 14 years using my journalism to counter the kind of Islamophobic tropes and narratives that once seduced me. You see, Islamophobia is seductive because it feels good, for it allows you to believe it's they who are backwards and barbaric, and it's we who are enlightened and civilized. It's the great lie told by all colonial powers to justify the pacification and subjugation of those who stand in the way of our capitalist exploits and imperial projects. It allows you to forget the horrors and injustices carried out in our name against the less fortunate other. Islamophobia also allows you to pretend that European colonialism never destroyed civic, social and political life in Muslim-majority countries it occupied. It allows you to pretend violence in Muslim-majority countries is the product of ancient rivalries and not the legacy of colonial, divide and rule strategies. Islamophobia also allows you to pretend the problems within our own societies are not the products of our choices, but rather the import of an external other. It's not us, it's them, and if we can just rid ourselves of them, then all will be good here, they say. But the good news is this: Islamophobia is indeed curable. I was cured by understanding Islam from Muslims, rather than from those who wish only to profit from the demonization of them. I was cured by taking a closer look at my country's role in the global cycle of violence. I was cured because I became aware I was unwell, but if I can cure myself to the psychological disease that is Islamophobia, then you can too. You, like me, will come to see the unique and unmistakable beauty that sits within the Islamic faith. You just need to take the first leap. As for me, I continue to seek and attain a better understanding of what is indeed the world's most beautiful religion.
Wow. Well, Apart from the killings, the bombing, you know, all this barbaric attitude and the rest, generally we have good Muslims and they, you know, follow their religion, like they cherish their religion and they are devoted. They dress well, like they are just incredible. I don't know, this guy's story, I don't know if it's really true or not, but incredible. And well, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button for more, like, share and comment. I'll see you in the next one. Stay blessed. Bye.